The kind of afternoon Los Angeles sells in postcards. Gold sun sliding toward the Pacific, palms trimmed like they had managers. When Alex Moore turned off the Pacific Coast Highway and pointed his electric coupe up the winding road to his glass and concrete home in the Palisades. He'd left the Santa Monica office early, wrung dry from investor calls and a product fire drill. A simple idea pulled him home. Surprise Jenna with takeout from their favorite Brentwood sushi spot. Open a decent Pinot, sit on the back deck, and just breathe. The house greeted him with its usual quiet. Floor-to-ceiling windows washed the living room in soft light, the scent of ocean and lemon oil hanging in the air. He set the bags on the kitchen island, glanced toward the terrace, and froze at the sound. Porcelain shattered. Then a small, strangled scream. Alex moved before his brain caught up, crossing the limestone foyer into the main hall. The scene pinned him in place. Jenna, polished, camera-ready Jenna, was bent over a little girl curled near the fragments of a pale blue vase. Jenna's face, usually composed like a magazine cover, was twisted. "You little brat," she hissed and kicked. "Jenna!" Alex's voice ripped out of him raw. She jerked upright, fury vanishing behind a mask of hurt surprise. "Alex, oh my God, this is not what it looks like," she said, smoothing her silk dress with hands that had just struck. She smashed the Ming. That was worth 20 grand. On the floor, the child, Maya, 8 years old, daughter of Carla Johnson, their housekeeper, clutched her shin, eyes wide and glassy. Blood beaded at her knee, bright against her brown skin. She flinched when Jenna took a step. Alex knelt between them, instinct shoving him forward. "Maya, hey, I've got you." He took in the thin socks, the scuffed school shoes, the trembling hands. "Where's your mom?" "In the laundry," Maya whispered, voice papery. Jenna exhaled a bitter laugh. "Call your boutique lawyer if you have to, but that vase—" "That's a kid," Alex said, looking up at his wife. The sentence didn't sound like him. It sounded like a stranger waking up in his own mouth. For 3 years, he'd believed in the campaign version of Jenna. Board seats, charity galas, glossy interviews about children's health. He thought of the posed photos, her with kids at a fundraiser in Century City, her hand on his arm, perfect lighting. And in an instant, the pictures felt like theater props. He saw other things too, small things that had never stopped him before. The way staff went quiet when Jenna entered a room. The way Carla's shoulders tensed at Jenna's voice. The way Maya vanished whenever heels clicked on the stone. Carla appeared in the doorway, breathless, eyes landing on the blood. "Maya!" she gasped, dropping to her knees. "Baby, are you okay?" Her hands hovered, careful, practiced. Jenna folded her arms. "Control your child. She's reckless. This is a home, not a daycare." Alex stood slowly. Enough. The word felt heavier than it should, like it had been waiting years to be used properly. He turned to Carla. "Take Maya to the kitchen. Ice, bandages. Please." Carla hesitated. The years of imbalance pressed into a single heartbeat, then nodded and scooped up her daughter. Maya's hand found Alex's wrist for a second, a quick squeeze, and then they were gone down the hall. Jenna's tone cooled. "You're overreacting." She knocked over a museum piece. "We employ her mother. They live here. The least she can do is not destroy things." Alex glanced at the scattered shards. He remembered buying the vase on a whim in New York because it looked like wealth is supposed to look. It seemed absurd on the floor now. Pretty, expensive, useless. "What did you say to her?" he asked. Jenna blinked, offended. Excuse me? In the seconds before I walked in, he said, steady now. What did you say to an 8-year-old that made her curl up like that? Don't you dare, Jenna warned, voice sharpening. Don't you dare turn this into one of your moral crusades. I run this house. You're never here, Alex. You don't get to swoop in and judge how I keep order. A colder silence moved in. His mind cataloged the years, product launches, flights, quarterly letters about equity and opportunity. While under this roof, a different economy had been running. Fear, discretion, silence. He walked past her into the kitchen. Carla had Maya on a bar stool, a dish towel under her leg, a gel pack pressed gently to the bruise. The girl's breath hitched when pressure found bone. You're okay, Carla murmured, voice frayed. She looked up at Alex, apology already forming. Mr. Moore, I'm sorry. You don't apologize to me, he said, and felt something in his chest snap, in a good way, like a cast cut loose. He pulled a first aid kit from the drawer, the one he'd stocked after a camping trip, peeled open an alcohol pad. This might sting, kiddo. I'm right here. Maya nodded, jaw tight, brave in the way children learn too early. From the doorway, Jenna's heels tapped, a metronome of control. Carla, take your daughter to your room. We'll discuss your severance in the morning. Carla flinched. Alex didn't turn. No one's discussing your job, he said to Carla, then looked at his wife. Not tonight. Not like this. Jenna laughed without humor. You're going to take the word of staff over your wife? I'm going to take the side of the truth, he said. And to find it, I'm going to look, really look, at what's been happening in this house. Jenna's smile iced over. Be very careful, Alex. You have a board meeting next week. Investors, press. Imagine how this plays if you let a disgruntled employee and her child wreck your legacy. He bandaged Maya's knee and set the kit down. He'd spent a career spotting patterns in data, seeing around corners. Somehow, he'd missed the corner right inside his front door. Not anymore. Carla, he said softly, after dinner, can you meet me in the study? Just to talk. No pressure. If you say no, that's okay. Carla searched his face for the trap, and finding none, gave the smallest nod. Jenna's voice followed him out of the kitchen. Sweet poison. You'll regret this. Maybe, he thought. But there are worse regrets than protecting a child. He stepped into the study, closed the door, and reached for his phone. Not to text PR, not to call a donor, but to search 3 numbers he'd never needed until now. Child advocacy, a civil rights attorney, and a therapist who works with trauma. The screen glowed. His reflection looked back at him. Different. What Alex did next would determine everything. The marriage, the company, and the safety of a little girl whose blood had stained his stone floor. The house didn't feel like his anymore. Adrian Cole moved through the glass and concrete hallways of his La Jolla estate as if he were a guest at a museum. Everything curated, everything beautiful, and suddenly none of it right. He could still hear the crack of porcelain, still see Nia's small hands flying up to protect her face, while Sloane hissed about ruined things and thankless people. That night, he found Carmen in the kitchen, shoulders tight, rinsing a saucepan that didn't need rinsing. Please, Mr. Cole, she whispered before he said a word. We'll stay out of the way. He set a mug of chamomile on the island and slid it toward her. You won't stay out of the way, he said, voice low. You'll stay safe. Start with the truth. Carmen's eyes flicked to the hallway. To the cameras everyone knew were there, and no one ever checked. Words came out haltingly at first, then faster, freer. The threats, the taunts about her accent, the accidents Nia was ordered to clean, the warnings that no one would ever hire a black housekeeper who made trouble for a woman like Sloane Cole. Adrian listened and felt something cold and precise form behind his sternum. A plan, not anger. Anger burns out. Plans finish. The next morning, while Sloane was at a charity brunch in Del Mar, he upgraded the security system he'd built years ago for art insurance. 2 pinhole lenses in the great room vents. A mic tucked behind a ficus in the gallery. A nanny cam. An ugly teddy bear with a pretty secret on a console table near the kitchen. All of it streaming to an encrypted drive in his office behind a false panel of books. For a week, he played the part. Husband on calls, CEO at board, donor in a tux, smiling on autopilot. Each night, when the ocean turned purple and the house went quiet, he closed his door and watched. He watched Sloane smooth Nia's hair for a school picture, coo, pretty girl, then mutter, know your place, as she yanked the comb. He watched her teach lessons that were punishment dressed as training, redoing the same task until tiny shoulders shook. He watched Carmen hover, calculating when to step in and when that would make things worse. He watched enough to know this wasn't a moment. It was a system. He called a lawyer whose number he kept for hostile takeovers and never imagined using for this. Diana Rodriguez, she said, brisk and warm at once. They met at a quiet table in Little Italy under a patio heater, the sound of forks and street violins masking every word. What you have, Diana said, tapping the folder he'd brought, is evidence of pattern, not impulse. That matters. But you also have a wife with connections, media savvy, and a reputation built on ribbon cuttings. She'll try to make you the unstable genius who snapped. Then we make the facts louder than the myth, Adrian said. Facts are loud when they're organized. She slid a checklist across the table. Mandatory reporting rules, temporary protective orders, custody implications if his home was deemed unsafe. And one more thing. Therapy for Nia. Bruises fade. Stories you believe about yourself don't. He nodded, throat tight. At Horizon Charter, Nia's art teacher confirmed what the video showed. Dark scribbles. Tall figures looming over tiny ones. A piano drawn again and again. Little hands reaching for keys that were always just out of frame. Adrian asked if she liked music. Nia shrugged, then whispered, I like the way it sounds in my head. Then we'll bring it out of your head, he said, into a room where it's safe. Sloane felt the shift before she saw the proof. San Diego's social circuit trains you to smell danger. She started laying groundwork at brunches, mentioning Adrian's exhaustion, a stress episode in New York. The way some geniuses spiral. She floated the idea that Carmen had begun to take advantage, that the child was acting out. By the weekend, rumors had grown legs and a closet full of designer heels. Adrian didn't correct anyone. He archived the gossip the way he archived the footage, meticulously. He also made changes Sloane would feel, but couldn't fight. The household HR firm, his, not hers, redrafted Carmen's employment terms with a housing stipend paid from a trust Sloane couldn't touch. A pediatric trauma specialist blocked time for Nia under a bland calendar label. A Yamaha upright arrived in the sunroom. And when Sloane raised an eyebrow, he said simply, donor perk from a music gala. That evening, Nia stared at the keys as if they might bite. No rules, Adrian said, pulling back the bench. just sound. She pressed C with one finger, then another, listening for something only she could hear. A three-note pattern emerged, thin but steady. Carmen stood in the doorway with a dish towel and let herself breathe for the first time in months. Sloane's patience snapped when patience stopped working. "We should replace the staff," she said over halibut that had cooled untouched. "New energy, discreet people." "We're not replacing anyone," he said, meeting her eyes. "We're replacing behavior." Her smile tightened. "You've always been naive about boundaries, Adrian. People like that finish that sentence," he said quietly. She didn't. She picked up her wine, Burgundy, an older vintage he used to save for anniversaries, and turned the stem between her fingers like a plan. The next morning, he found a voicemail from a board member asking if he was all right and if he'd consider stepping back for optics. He also found a voice memo on the nanny cam, Sloane, soft and lethal, telling Naya that pretty stories about abuse would put her mother on the street. Adrian forwarded the clip to Diana with one line: "We're past optics." That night, he told Carmen the part that mattered. "This will get loud," he said. "It will be scary, but I won't let her bury you. Not in this house, not in this city." Carmen nodded, jaw set. "Then we don't whisper anymore." On the piano, Nia's three notes grew into four. Outside, the Pacific breathed in and out against the cliffs, indifferent and eternal. Inside, a different tide had started moving, slow at first, then stronger, pulling the story away from the woman who curated rooms and toward the people who lived in them. Adrian closed the office door on another hour of footage, stacked his evidence in order, and felt the plan settle into place like a final key pressed just right. The sound that followed wasn't pretty. It was true. Morning spilled over La Jolla like polished glass, all glare and no warmth. Adrian watched the ocean from his office and thought about the question nobody had asked yet. What kind of man lets a monster live in his house? His phone buzzed before the shame could finish its sentence. "Mr. Cole? Fernando Ortiz, art teacher at Horizon." Her voice was careful. "Could you come by today? It's about Nia." He was in the classroom by noon. Paint-splattered easels, sun through paper snowflakes. Ms. Ortiz slid a folder across a low table. Inside were drawings, tall red spikes over a tiny brown figure. A piano with the bench pushed far away. A woman's black stilettos like knives. "I don't need details," the teacher said softly. "But she's carrying more than a second grader should." "Does she talk?" Adrian asked. "Not about it. She does about music." Ms. Ortiz smiled, a thin, hopeful thing. "She hears patterns other kids don't." The school counselor joined them, nodded at the folder, and spoke in clear, legal lines. Mandated reporting, recommended therapy, safety plans. Adrian signed everything, then waited in the hallway until Nia walked past with her class. She glanced up, surprised, then reached for his hand without asking first. He squeezed back. On the drive home, she stared out the window. "Am I in trouble for the jar? For the mess?" "No," he said. "You're in the middle of someone else's wrong." "Am I wrong for being me?" The words were whispered into her sleeve. He almost pulled the car over. "No. You are exactly right." Back at the house, the Yamaha waited in the sunroom like a promise. Adrian lifted the fallboard. "You can play whenever you want," he said. "No rules here." She sat, one note, then another. The room changed. That night, Diana spread files across his kitchen island while Carmen stirred a pot She didn't need to stir. We're building 3 tracks, the attorney said, flipping tabs. Protective order, employment shield for Carmen, and a communication plan for when this goes public. When, not if. Diana met his eyes. Sloane's already floating a story about your stress. She'll escalate. Carmen lowered the spoon. She'll say I'm lying. She will, Diana said, and then we'll show them this. She tapped the tablet. Clips assembled, time-stamped, transcribed. Sloane's voice slithered through the speakers. Pretty, contemptuous, undeniable. Adrian felt the old executive self settle over him. Not as armor, but as structure. What's the first move? Therapy for Nia. Documentation for every appointment. And you call HR. Carmen's housing and salary move into a trust with my firm as cosigner. She slid a second folder forward. Also, stop sleeping next to Sloane. Separate bedrooms, on record. If she tries to claim reconciliation later, we need dates. He slept in the guest suite that night and listened to the house breathe. AC cycling, breakers humming, waves punching the cliff. At 2 a.m., the nanny cam pushed a clip to his phone. Sloane in the kitchen, whispering into her cell. He's unstable. Genius types. I'm worried. The next day, a board member called with sorrow in his voice and calculation beneath it. Optics, Adrian. Maybe step back a quarter. He didn't answer. He forwarded the clip to Diana. Reply, keep collecting. We'll choose the battlefield. 2 days later, Ms. Ortiz texted a video from music class. Nia, at a school keyboard, playing a bare-bones Chopin the way a child tells the truth. No flourish, just feeling. Carmen watched it on the couch and covered her mouth with both hands. She was afraid to touch the big piano, she said. Thank you. Don't thank me, Adrian said. I should have seen this sooner. Sloane sensed the drift and shifted tactics. Brunches turned into murmurs, turned into calls. An investment partner asked if Adrian was managing his situation. A society columnist posted a blind item about a tech husband unraveling in paradise. That evening, Sloane arrived home in a cream sheath and a smile like a blade. We need to talk, she said, stepping into his office as if she owned air. Carmen has become entitled, and that child, disruptive. I won't have chaos in my house. Our house, he said, and it's not chaos, it's harm, from you. She laughed, musical and empty. You're tired. I've told people you're tired. They understand. Good, he said. They'll understand what comes next. Her eyes narrowed a millimeter. Careful, Adrian. Stories can be edited. People will believe the version that fits. Then let's make sure the version that fits is the truth. She left with a shrug that said she didn't believe in truth, only in angles. By Friday, the angles were on television. A local morning show ran a segment. Sloane on a beige sofa, mascara dewy, voice trembling just enough. My husband's brilliant, she said, but brilliance can be volatile. We're praying. The host squeezed her hand. The Chiron read, Philanthropist speaks out. Adrian watched from the office with the sound off. In the reflection of the glass, he could see Carmen at the doorway and Nia behind her, small, listening. What do we do? Carmen asked. He turned up the volume until Sloane's careful eyes filled the room. Then he reached for his phone. We stop pretending? He said, dialing Diana. Set it up. For when? Diana asked. First thing Monday. No spin. Just show them. He hung up and walked to the sunroom. Nia had found that 3-note pattern again and grown it into something that sounded like standing up. He sat on the floor beside the bench, back against the wall, and let the music keep time with his decision. Outside, the last light slid off the water. Inside, the cameras blinked red. Monday would be loud. He could feel the house bracing for it. Every beam, every wire, every room that had ever held a lie. Monday broke bright and pitiless. Reporters lined the cul-de-sac below the bluff. Vans sprouted satellite dishes, and a drone hovered over the palms like a metal gull. Adrian adjusted his tie in the foyer mirror and caught the hollowed eyes of a man who'd stopped mistaking silence for peace. Diana arrived at 8:10, crisp navy suit, flat shoes, a messenger bag swollen with exhibits. "We stay on facts," she said, tapping the bag. "No adjectives. We play the tapes. We publish transcripts. Then you announce the fund for domestic workers and the scholarship for Nia," without saying her name. Carmen stood in the archway, wringing a dish towel she didn't know she held. "If this ruins you, I can't let you." "It'll cost me," Adrian said. "It already has. But I'm not the one who's been paying the highest price." Nia peeked from behind Carmen's leg, hair in two puffs, backpack already on. "Do I still go to school?" "You do," Adrian said, crouching to her eye level. "Ms. Ortiz is waiting, piano after." Her mouth tilted into a half smile. "I can play the brave song." Outside, the drone pivoted. Inside, a phone vibrated. Diana checked it, then exhaled. "Heads up. Sloane's team booked her at 10 a.m. on a rival channel. Standing by my husband through his crisis. They'll try to split the audience." "Then we start at 9:45, Adrian said. "Make them cut in on the truth." At 9:12, the board chair texted, "Strongly advise postponement. Market nervous." He put the phone face down. At 9:18, Ms. Ortiz sent a 30-second clip. Nia in the music room, playing a clean, tender phrase of Bach. He let it roll twice, a thread of courage he could close his fist around. They drove to the hotel ballroom together. Diana, Adrian, a junior associate pushing a cart with a monitor and a small black case that held the camera's memory cards like fragile bones. The corridor smelled of coffee and hairspray. Beyond the doors, microphones bristled at the podium. Rows of chairs filled with press badges and restless sneakers. Diana took the mic first. "Good morning. My name is Diana Ramirez. I represent Mr. Cole, his household staff, and a minor whom we will not identify. The following materials have been authenticated." She nodded at the tech, who dimmed the lights. Sloane's voice filled the room. Cool, bored cruelty. The kind that cuts deeper because it expects applause. On screen, she yanked a tiny arm out of frame. Gasps rippled across the floor like a wind. The second clip rolled, then the third. Slurs, threats. The laugh that had charmed Gala souring into something feral. Questions detonated before the lights rose. "Mr. Cole, how long did you know? Were police called? Is this a divorce strategy? What's the child's condition?" Diana fielded the barrage with clean, practiced answers. Dates, filings, the restraining order request, stamped this morning. Adrian stepped up only to say, "I failed to see what I should have seen. That ends today." And to announce the fund, $5 million seated to provide legal aid, housing, and therapy for domestic workers. A music scholarship program for low-income children in San Diego County. Phones lit like a constellation. A producer in the third row whispered, "We're live." And the red tally on the main camera blinked on. 10 minutes in, a reporter cupped his headset. "Sloane just went on Channel 6, he called. "She says the videos are deepfakes and that you're retaliating." Diana was ready. "We anticipated that claim." She motioned. The tech tapped keys. A split screen appeared. Left side the recordings, right side the nanny cam's cloud metadata with timestamps, IP logs, and geotags from inside the Cole residence. We've also retained an independent forensic lab. Their certification will be posted within the hour. The question softened. The tone shifted. It wasn't sympathy. Journalists don't grant that easily. But it wasn't bloodsport anymore. When the lights came back up for the last time, Adrian felt something loosen between his ribs that had been cinched tight for weeks. They stepped into the hallway, and the quiet there sounded almost holy. Carmen stood near a pillar, phone in hand, eyes wet. "They're texting me from the church," she said, breathless. "They say they're praying for us. For you." "For her," Adrian said. "Always for her." The elevator chimed. The door slid open. Sloane stepped out in white, a lawyer at her shoulder and a camera crew in tow. Her makeup was perfect. Her smile belonged to a woman certain the world adored her. She looked from Diana to Adrian to the cart with its neat black case, and something mean flickered under the gloss. "Adrian," she purred for the camera, "you don't have to do this." Diana moved between them. "Ms. Vale, you're subject to a temporary protective order. You'll address counsel." Sloane's eyes iced over. The order hasn't been served. "It just was," Diana said, glancing to the uniformed deputy striding down the corridor with papers in hand. The camera operator swung for the shot. The deputy lifted the envelope. Sloane's smile clung to her face like paint in a storm. 3 floors below, in the hotel cafe, a television above the espresso machine cut from weather to breaking news. At Horizon Elementary, Ms. Ortiz silenced her phone as Nia laid her hands on the school keyboard. The first notes of the Brave song floated into the room. "Upstairs," the deputy said. "Ms. Vale?" and extended the papers. Sloane's lawyer reached, but the deputy shook his head. "To her." The hallway held its breath. The envelope hovered between power and consequence. And then, from somewhere beyond the ballroom doors, a shout. "Leak on Channel 6. New audio." Diana's junior associate stumbled back out of the room, white-faced, a phone held up like a flare. On the screen, a waveform pulsed. Sloane's voice, unmistakable, was about to say something even the board, the brunch crowd, and the country club couldn't spin. The deputy's hand still waited. The cameras rolled. The note Nia held at school hung in the air, bright and steady, while the rest of La Jolla leaned forward to hear what came next. On every lobby screen, Sloane's voice sneered through car speaker static. "If that little girl touches my piano again, I'll bleach the keys. Adrian won't do a thing. He never does. He needs me to look respectable." A collective O tore down the corridor. The deputy didn't flinch. "Ms. Vale," he repeated, placing the restraining order squarely into her manicured hand. Paper finally met skin. The camera light glowed red. Sloane's smile cracked. "This is character assassination," she told the lens, angling the pages so no one could read the words. "My husband is having a breakdown, and some opportunists are exploiting a family matter." Diana lifted a palm. "No statements," she murmured to Adrian. "We're done here." They moved. Adrian, Diana, the associate, the cart with its black case, toward the service elevator. Behind them, Sloane's lawyer tried to corral reporters into a second scrum. Carmen fell into step, still gripping her phone like a talisman. In the freight car's hum, Diana exhaled. "The order means she can't contact you, Carmen, or approach the house or Horizon. Patrol will be notified." Carmen nodded, stunned. "Gracias." Adrian checked his phone. A text from the board chair. Crisis committee wants you off camera until further notice. Another from Ms. Ortiz. She played beautifully. We've got her. Get Nia straight home after school, Adrian said. I'll have protective detail at the gate. The elevator thunked at the loading dock. They slipped into daylight, crossed behind delivery trucks, and piled into Diana's Prius. As they pulled away, Adrian looked back at the hotel's glass skin, his reflection a ghost riding the surface. He used to measure his days by earnings calls and product roadmaps. Now he measured them in breath, held, and breath let go. By the time they reached the house, the leak had metastasized. National shows played the nanny cam clips split screen with Sloane's charity pageant smiles. A think piece bloomed online about class, race, and the invisible labor under Ocean View mansions. The foundation inbox pinged every 20 seconds with small donations and long confessions. We promise transparency, Diana said, already drafting a post. We'll publish the forensic certification, the timeline, the hotline for domestic workers. We don't gloat. We don't spike the football. Adrian's phone rang. Unknown, San Diego County. He answered on speaker. Mr. Cole, this is Investigator Park with Child Welfare. Given the public nature of the allegations, we're initiating an emergency wellness check on the minor. We'd like to visit within the hour. Of course, he said, throat tight. We'll be here. Carmen stiffened, then relaxed when Diana nodded. Standard, the lawyer said softly. Let them see what's real. At 3:05, a county sedan rolled past the gate. Investigator Park stepped out, brown blazer, kind eyes, a clipboard held like a shield. Nia arrived moments later with Miss Ortiz, backpack thumping, puffs slightly askew from a full day. Park knelt to introduce herself at eye level. I like your shoes, she said. Mine squeak when I hurry. Nia's face opened. Mine squeak when I'm nervous. They sat at the kitchen island. Park asked careful questions about school, music, feelings, who made her feel safe. Nia spoke in small, brave sentences. Adrian answered when asked, didn't when he wasn't. Carmen told the truth without embroidery. Park toured the bedrooms, the pantry, the sunny alcove where Nia kept sheet music. She noted the camera placements and Adrian's consent forms. At the door, she said, we'll follow up. For now, keep routine steady. Consistency is a cushion. As the county car rolled away, Adrian's phone buzzed again. Marcus, his oldest friend and COO. He braced. Board's in emergency session, Marcus said. Half want you to step back until this stabilizes. I told them stabilizing means standing with the truth, but they're scared. They should be, Adrian said, just not of the truth. You've got an hour. Then they vote. When the line clicked dead, silence spread out, thin and brittle. Carmen touched the edge of the counter. If they take your company because of us, they can't take what matters, he said, surprised by how much he meant it. Diana slid a legal pad across the island. 2 tracks, she said. 1, we shore up the legal case. Motion to convert the temporary order to permanent spoliation letter to preserve Sloane's cloud backups, subpoenas for her club's security logs. 2, we fight the board without fighting the board. You offer to step back from day to day and chair the new foundation arm. You make their fear look like purpose. You're asking me to demote myself. I'm asking you to lead differently. The intercom crackled. Gate. Visitor for Slow? For Ms. Vale. Says he's media. Diana turned to the monitor. A man in a blazer too tight across the chest. Hair shellacked, smile sharp. He's with the station that ran her live segment, she said. We don't play that game. Security can tell him we're not available, Adrian said. The buzzer pressed again, insistent. A second voice bled in from the speaker. Sloane's. Let me in, Adrian. We need to talk without the vultures. Carmen went pale. Diana stepped to the console. Ms. Vale? You are in violation of a court order, she said, voice level. Leave now, or we will call the police. A beat. Then footsteps retreating on gravel. The media man's chuckle, a car door slam. The intercom settled back into static. Paper holds, Diana said, more to herself than anyone. At 5:02, the board's Zoom grid populated on Adrian's laptop. 12 rectangles, a gallery of tight mouths and worried eyes. The chair cleared her throat. Adrian, we all saw the press conference. It was a lot. He kept his voice even. It was necessary. We have fiduciary duties, another director said. We can't be the headline for the wrong reasons. Then be it for the right ones, Adrian replied. We build tech to organize human life. If we can't organize ourselves around basic decency, what do we even sell? He laid out Diana's plan, a temporary transition, Marcus as acting CEO, an independent audit of company culture, including household vendor practices, a commitment of 1% of revenue to the fund over the next year. I'll chair that arm, he finished. While the case proceeds. The grid flickered with surprise. Marcus rubbed his eyes. The chair leaned in. This might actually work, she said slowly. It reframes the story. A motion, a vote. Carried, barely. When the call ended, the house exhaled. Ms. Ortiz texted a photo. Nia at the upright in the school music room, grinning in a way Adrian wished he could frame around the whole day. Carmen poured 3 glasses of water and raised hers like a toast. Por aguantar, she said, for holding. The doorbell rang. No intercom buzz, no gate call, just the close, intimate sound of someone at the threshold. Adrian followed Diana to the foyer. She checked the peephole, went still. On the porch stood a woman in a faded county windbreaker, laminated ID on a lanyard, a clipboard that didn't quite match the others. Behind her, dusk pooled under the bougainvillea. A sedan idled at the curb with its lights off. She smiled through the glass, too wide, too calm. Good evening, she said. I'm with Child Welfare. We received an anonymous tip and need to remove the minor for emergency placement pending investigation. Diana's hand hovered over the deadbolt. Investigator Park left an hour ago, she said, and she doesn't have a partner on this case. The woman's smile didn't waver. Ma'am, the tip was credible. Open the door. Down the hall, a single piano note sounded, soft, questioning, before Nia's small voice floated from the kitchen. Do I keep practicing? The porch woman tapped her clipboard, a fingernail clicking like a metronome. Open up, she repeated, sweet as syrup. Or I'll have to call this in as non-compliance. Diana didn't blink. Nia, sweetheart, keep practicing, she called, voice steady. Play the C scale for me. To the woman at the door. Please hold your ID up to the glass. The badge rose, lamination glinting. Diana leaned in, lawyer eyes scanning. The seal looked right, but the font on the name line was wrong, and the photo edges were jagged, as if cropped out of something else. Adrian's phone was already dialing. Investigator Park, it's Adrian Cole. Quick verification. Did you send a second team to our address? On speaker, Park's calm filled the foyer. No. And we never announce removals at the door. I'm calling dispatch. Do not open. The woman's smile thinned. Sir, you're delaying a lawful action. Ma'am, Diana replied, you're trespassing. Step off the porch. Security is en route, and this entryway camera is recording. From the sidewalk, the idling sedan flickered its parking lights, like a signal. The woman checked her phone, then rapped the glass once, annoyed, not official, and retreated with an exaggerated sigh. The sedan pulled away without headlights, disappearing down the hill into the eucalyptus dark. Diana slid the deadbolt. Her hand shook only after it clicked home. Sloane didn't get in the gate, she said, thinking aloud. So she tried to manufacture a removal and a scene. If we'd opened, she'd have had footage of panic. Or worse. Adrian's shoulders sagged, then squared again. We escalate threats to law. No more guessing. He texted the entry video to Park and copied Diana. Within minutes, 2 cruisers rolled up, blue bars bouncing off the stucco. An officer gathered statements, noted the fake badge, and promised patrols would sweep the block for the sedan. Carmen stood under the kitchen arch, arms folded tight across her chest. I thought... She stopped, swallowed. I thought they could just take her. Diana softened. They can't. Not like that. Park will file a report that someone impersonated a county worker. That's a felony. On cue, the entry cam dinged. Park again, now on video. I've logged the impersonation and alerted our supervisors, she said. For tonight, keep the alarm on. If anyone shows, without a marked unit and a case number, don't engage. Call me first. Thank you, Adrian said. For everything. Consistency is a cushion, Park repeated, almost a benediction. The call ended. Somewhere in the back of the house, the C-scale drifted into lean on me, clumsy and perfect. They ate late, grilled cheese, tomato soup from a carton, the kind of dinner that tastes like a small rescue. Adrian told a story about his own third-grade recital disaster. Carmen admitted she used to hum along to soap opera themes while mopping floors. Nia laughed at both, cheeks finally pink instead of pale. At 9, Diana gathered her bag. The board vote bought you space, she said. Use it. I'll file tomorrow to make the protective order permanent. Also, press keeps calling. We give them substance, not spectacle. The hotline numbers, the fund, the audit. No off-the-cuff interviews, no porch drama. Adrian walked her to the door, eyeing the curve of the street. Sloane will try again. She will, Diana said. Bullies hate boundaries, but you've got something she can't fake. She tipped her chin toward the sound of the piano. A center. After lights out, the house settled. The ocean's hush pushed through the palms. The refrigerator clicked and hummed. Adrian lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan's slow spin. He thought about the grid of faces on the board call, the anonymous donors' notes piling in his inbox, Park's even voice, Sloane's too sweet threat at the door, the life he used to call normal snapping like a brittle branch. His phone vibrated once on the nightstand. A new email subject line glowed. Statement of support. Vendors and staff. He opened it. Dear Mr. Cole, we are a group of household employees and contractors who've worked in your neighborhood for years. Gardeners, cleaners, babysitters, tutors. We've seen things people don't say out loud. Tonight we saw your press conference. If you need statements or names, we will stand with Carmen and Nia. We're tired of being scared. 30 signatures followed. First names, initials, a few full names in shaky type. At the bottom, a line in Spanish. No mas silencio. Adrian felt something unclench in his chest. He typed, "Thank you. You will be protected. Diana will organize a safe intake." He hit send, then set the phone face down and listened to the dark. The alarm chirped softly at midnight. The back gate sensor. Adrian was upright before the second chirp. The monitor on the dresser flashed to a grainy black and white view of the side yard. Two silhouettes moved along the fence line, low and quick, a flashlight beam probing the hedges like a surgeon's tool. Adrian slipped into the hall as the house lights popped on with the alarm's full-throated wail. Carmen met him at the intersection, eyes wide. "Nia," she breathed. "I've got her," Adrian said. "Bathroom, tub, go." Carmen ran. Adrian punched 911 on the wall panel. "Two intruders on the property," he told the dispatcher. "Back gate, north side. Cameras active. We have a restraining order in place. Officers are on the way. Stay inside. Lock interior doors if you can." Diana had taught him this part too. Stack points of safety. He locked the deadbolt on the bedroom wing, pulled the fire door shut, and hustled to the front hall, grabbing the heavy flashlight from the console. The alarm's siren felt like a living thing in the walls. A thud rattled the patio slider. A second thud. Glass trembled, but didn't give. Then a voice, muffled but unmistakable, oozed through the gap where the seal met frame. "Adrian," it sang, "you always loved a grand entrance." He didn't go closer. The camera over the mantel caught the sound and the shape. Tall, slim, a ponytail a little too perfect for midnight. A shadow behind her, broader, stayed out of view. Sirens crested the hill like a wave. Red and blue flooded the yard. The figures flinched, bolted. A gate latch clanged. Tires skidded. A patrol SUV cut across the driveway, boxing in a black coupe. Doors flew open. Commands cracked the night. "Hands up! Vehicle off! Out now!" Adrian kept his hand on the flashlight and his body between the entry and the hall until a firm knock sounded and a voice called, "San Diego County Sheriff's Department." He disarmed the system and opened the door to uniformed certainty and the relief of procedure. An officer's radio chattered. "Driver says he's an assistant. Won't give ID." The voice crackled from outside. Passenger bailed over the back fence. Units canvassing. The officer in the foyer took notes under Adrian's mantle camera, eyes flicking to the recording light. "You'll send tonight's footage?" "Already backing it up to our counsel," Adrian said. The officer nodded. "Good. Proximity to a protected person after service of order is jail time. If we catch her, we'll book her." The house quieted in the wake of the patrol car's slow sweep. Carmen emerged with Nia, who clutched a towel like a cloak. "I heard the siren," she whispered. "It sounded like when Ms. Ortiz does the metronome too fast." Adrian crouched to her height. "That was the sound of help." Nia nodded, solemn behind her towel. "Can I sleep on the couch with the dog?" "We don't have a dog," Adrian said, smiling despite himself. "Then can we get one?" "We'll discuss it in the morning." By 2 a.m., the alarm was reset, the report filed, the coffee made for no good reason except the warmth of a mug. Carmen dozed in the armchair beside the couch where Nia finally slept, hands stretched out to touch the edge of her blanket like a tripwire of love. Adrian stood at the window, watching the red taillights of the last cruiser fade down the hill. His phone buzzed one more time. Diana, of course. "You okay?" He texted back, "We're safe. Attempted entry." Caught her voice on cam. Officers almost boxed her in. "Good. Sleep if you can. Tomorrow. Permanent order motion at 9. Vendor listening session at noon. Foundation statement At 3, we move the story we want, not the one she wants. He set the phone down and let the room's quiet fill him. Across the glass, the Pacific breathed, indifferent and steady. Behind him, a child slept safe in a house that had finally chosen what kind of home it wanted to be. At 6:15, before dawn, the gate camera pinged again. Not a car. A single figure on foot, hoodie up, hands visible. Investigator Park, hair pulled into a no-nonsense bun, held up a thermos and a paper bag. The intercom crackled with her voice. "I brought donuts," she said dryly. "And an official statement for the record about last night. Also, I don't like people impersonating me." Adrian glanced at Carmen, who smiled for the first time that day. That night, all of it. "Let her in," Carmen said. He pressed the button. The lock buzzed. The gate swung. And with it, another boundary shifted. From fear to something sturdier that might, just might, hold when the next push came. By 8:30, the courthouse steps looked like a movie set. Tripods, coffee cups, sun bouncing off every lens. Diana threaded them like she'd rehearsed it, leather brief under her arm, chin up. Adrian kept Carmen and Nia between him and Investigator Park, who wore a blazer over her duty polo like armor. Inside, Department 4 smelled like old wood and fresh toner. The judge, Honorem Tran, read fast, eyes flicking from petition to exhibits. To the right, Sloane Vale sat in a cream-wrap dress, face dewy, a single pearl at her throat. Her lawyer, all polished steel, whispered without moving his lips. Diana rose. "Your Honor, we're seeking a permanent protective order for Carmen Santos and her daughter Nia, and an extension of the existing stay-away for Mr. Cole's residence. We've submitted authenticated video, audio, and sworn declarations." "Ms. Rodriguez," Judge Tran said, "walk me through the recordings." The first clip filled the screen. Sloane's voice at the patio slider, syrup poured over a threat. The judge's brow tightened. The next clip showed the fake caseworker at the door, badge up, Park's voice on speaker saying, "We didn't send anyone." Then, the midnight run. 2 figures at the fence, sirens, a black coupe boxed by cruisers. Sloane's attorney stood. "Your Honor, these are misunderstood moments. My client is a public figure targeted by a vindictive ex. She went to the property to retrieve personal items. The woman at the door was a third-party process server." Judge Tran didn't blink. Process servers don't wear county badges. Sloane placed a hand on her chest, like a hand model selling sincerity. "I just want peace. I've done so much for this community." Diana didn't look over. Intent doesn't erase impact. There's a child in the middle of this, and adults who use the language and posture of authority to intimidate her. Park stepped forward when called, voice even as ever. "The impersonation of a CPS worker is a felony, Your Honor. My office did not dispatch anyone." We filed a report. 10 minutes later, it was ink. The court granted a 3-year protective order for Carmen and Nia, expanded the perimeter around the house, and warned any violation would land the violator in custody. Sloane's lawyer requested a stay. Judge Tran denied it, gavel soft but final. On the steps, microphones bloomed toward them. Adrian lifted a hand. "We're not taking questions. If you want to help, publish the hotline numbers Diana's office gave you." He turned, guided Carmen down. Over his shoulder, Sloane smiled for a camera as if the order had been flowers delivered to her door. At noon, folding chairs filled Adrian's studio like a secret union hall. landscapers in sun-faded caps, nannies with strollers, tutors still wearing school lanyards. 40 people came, then 60, then more. A whiteboard read, "Safe listening." No names shared outside this room. A man with paint-flecked hands spoke first. 8 years on that hill. I've seen kids called dirty for sweating. I've watched housekeepers docked pay for eating a sandwich at noon. A tutor added, I was told to make a child repeat apology sentences. I am lucky to be here. For spilling a cup of water. Heads nodded. Phones stayed pocketed. The only recording was Diana's paralegal taking careful, coded notes. Carmen hadn't planned to speak. When she did, her voice was soft but steady. I used to think surviving quietly was the strongest thing I could do. Maybe the stronger thing is to tell the truth out loud, even if my hands shake. Applause rose, not polite, but grateful. Nia, on a bench at the back, traced notes on her lap, like invisible keys. At 3, the Cole Family Fund posted its first public statement. Free legal intake for domestic workers, emergency stipends, a network of pro bono therapists for kids. Within the hour, an email pinged from a prominent hotel chain offering to match the fund's first $250,000. For a moment, the day felt like an upward draft, lifting everyone in the room. It didn't last. At 4:30, Adrian's phone lit with a link. A gossip site had pushed a breaking banner. Exclusive. Housekeeper caught stealing. Watch the tape. The clip was short and grainy, a dining room camera from a different mansion across the ridge. A woman in a uniform, similar build to Carmen, slipped a bracelet into her pocket while setting a table. The caption did the rest. This is who Adrian Cole protects. Within minutes, the comments turned acid. Thief, grifter, scam. Carmen's face went paper white. That's not me, she said, already breathless, as if the room had been robbed of air. That's not me. I've never... Her hand shook so hard her phone slid off her palm. Diana's eyes narrowed. Freeze frame. She pinched the video on Adrian's screen, zoomed. Look at the shoes. Carmen blinked, confused. What? You wear slip-resistant black clogs. Those are white-soled sneakers with a logo. And the bracelet. That's from Vale's heirloom line. Diana glanced up. Sloane seeded this, she said flatly. Different house, different uniform, close enough to smear. Park was already on her tablet. I know this camera angle. It's the Keller's place. They have a rotating staff from an agency. I'll call the agency director. We'll get the clock-in records and the footage before and after this cut. Adrian put a hand on Carmen's shoulder, gentle but anchoring. We won't fight this on a gossip site. We fight it with receipts. The doorbell rang. Every muscle in Adrian's back tightened. But it was a uniform. Marked car, visible in the driveway. Body cam blinking. 2 officers stood in the entry with neutral faces that never feel neutral when you're the one being looked at. Mr. Cole, the taller one said, we got a call from counsel for Ms. Vale, alleging theft by Ms. Santos at a neighboring residence. We're here to take a statement. Carmen's fingers knotted into the hem of her sweater. Diana stepped forward, bar card out like a shield. Officer, this is an attempted defamation linked to an ongoing protective order. We have reason to believe the video's been edited and misattributed. We'll provide the agency's logs and the homeowner's full footage. In the meantime, my client will not be questioned without counsel present. The officer nodded, relieved to have a script. Understood, ma'am. We're not here to arrest anyone. We just need to note contact. He glanced at Carmen, softened. Ma'am, you don't have to say a word today. We'll follow up through Ms. Rodriguez. They left a card and left the house in a hush that felt like the pause between thunder and rain. The comments kept climbing. The clip kept spreading. Sloane posted a black screen prayer for truth to her followers. Nia tugged Carmen's sleeve. "Mom, why would someone lie about you?" Carmen knelt so they were eye level. Because sometimes hurting people throw mud to make everyone look dirty. She swallowed. "But we'll wash it off." Adrian turned to the whiteboard, uncapped a marker with a click that sounded like resolve. "Okay," he said. "We build a timeline, work logs, GPS pings, full camera reels, not the chopped version. Park, can you get the Kellers to preserve everything right now?" "I'm on it," Park said, already dialing. "And I'll drive over." Diana pulled her laptop closer. "We file an emergency motion to compel platform takedowns and a notice of preservation to the gossip site. We also sue. If Sloane wants court, we will give her court." Evening leaned against the windows, long and gold and indifferent. Inside, they drew lines on a board and stacked proof on proof, trying to outrun a lie with the slower, steadier thing that lasts. At 6:02 p.m., Park texted a photo from the Keller's foyer camera. Wide frame, clear badge shots, a timestamp that torpedoed the edit. The woman in the clip had a small crescent moon tattoo on her wrist. Not Carmen, not close. Diana smiled without humor. "We've got her." Adrian nodded, felt the first real breath he'd taken in an hour. He looked from the screen to Carmen to Nia. "Tomorrow morning," he said, "we put the truth on the record." The doorbell rang again. This time, it wasn't the police. It was a courier with a thick envelope and a return address stamped Valen Partners. Inside was a lawsuit. Defamation, interference, emotional distress, filed by Sloane that afternoon. Diana skimmed, jaw setting. "She wants to litigate our lives in public." Adrian tapped the thick stack, then the whiteboard. "Then we'll bring light." He looked at Carmen. She nodded. Nia reached for her mother's hand and squeezed. Outside, the ocean kept breathing. Inside, the next fight waited, inked, stamped, and already moving toward them. Morning broke with a stack of headlines and a thicker stack of papers. Diana slid the lawsuit back into its envelope like she was putting a snake in a bag. "Classic slap," she said. "Strategic lawsuit against public participation. California gave us a bat for this exact pitch." "Anti-slap?" Adrian asked. She nodded. "We file a special motion to strike. If we win, the court tosses her claims early and orders her to pay our fees. But I also want an emergency order forcing the sites to pull the doctored clip." Investigator Park arrived with a flash drive, hair in a no-nonsense bun, eyes bright. Keller's agency confirmed. Their employee clocked in the day of the so-called theft. Timestamps don't match Carmen's schedule, and I pulled full-frame footage. She clicked play. A crystal-clear foyer angle, the crescent moon tattoo on the other woman's wrist, the logo on her white-soled sneakers, the Keller family crest etched on the mirror. None of it Carmen. None of it this house. Carmen watched the screen, jaw clenched, shoulders shaking once, and then going very still. "Thank you," she whispered, as if the words had to pass through years of swallowing them. Diana's paralegal printed stills, with red circles around the details. "We'll staple the truth to every filing." By 11, they were in Department 86, a fast-moving calendar court, where phones buzzed like cicadas. Sloane sat front row, immaculate in navy, a theater of concern on her face. Her lawyer rose. "Your Honor, my client is the target of a smear." Diana didn't let the story set. "We're here on two issues, our anti-slap motion and a request for a temporary restraining order requiring takedown of a manipulated video. We've authenticated exculpatory footage from a different residence proving Ms. Santos is not the person depicted. The judge, a woman with silver hair and the tired patience of someone who's seen the same game played 100 ways, flipped through the exhibits. She paused at the tattoo still. And the gossip site? On notice, Diana said. Refused to remove without a court order. Sloane's attorney tried a pivot. Even if the clip is misattributed, Mr. Cole has waged a campaign to destroy Ms. Vale's livelihood. The campaign is called Daylight, Adrian said, before he could stop himself. The judge lifted an eyebrow. He sat, folded his hands tight. Park testified crisply about the badge impersonation and the Keller footage chain of custody. The gallery murmured at felony. The judge tapped her pen. All right. TRO granted. Platforms to remove within 24 hours. As to anti-slap, I'm taking it under submission. But on this record, your complaint looks fragile, counsel. A small, imperfect exhale moved through their row. Outside, cameras waited. Adrian remembered yesterday's promise and stuck to it. We'll let the orders speak, he told a half-circle of mics. If you're running the clip, take it down. If you shared it, undo the harm. By mid-afternoon, the video vanished from feeds like a stain lifted from fabric. The site posted a grudging update. Content removed, pending court review. Sloane responded with a black and white selfie and the caption, "Sometimes truth takes time." Comments fought with themselves under it. The studio filled again before dusk. Same chairs, new faces. A gardener described being told to come on Sundays, cash only, and keep quiet. A chauffeur said he slept in his car between shifts to afford gas. A nanny admitted she'd signed a non-disclosure so strict she was scared to complain about mold in a kid's playroom. Diana explained whistleblower protections. Park collected contact info like seeds. Nia sat at the old upright in the corner, body angled away from the room, fingers barely touching the keys. Without looking up, she began a scale, slow as a first step. The room hushed. She braided the scale into a simple melody, half lullaby, half rehearsal, notes no bigger than a voice finding itself. Carmen stood beside her, palm hovering above her shoulder, not steering, just near. Adrian's phone buzzed with an unknown number. He stepped into the hall, answered. A woman's voice, low, rushed, scared. I can't say my name. I worked for Ms. Vale last year. There are more videos. She made us use a separate entrance. She threw a plate when I asked for overtime. I kept the shattered pieces. I wrote the date on the bag. A breath. If I bring it, will you keep me safe? You can come here, he said softly. We'll meet you at the curb. You won't be alone. He texted Diana and Park and headed for the door, but Carmen touched his sleeve. Please be careful, she said. He nodded and jogged down the steps into evening. The curb was empty. A lift idled across the street. A mail carrier pushed a cart. Sirens wailed somewhere far. He checked the number. No voicemail, no name. Called back. It rang into a void. Park joined him minutes later, scanning the block. Could be nerves. Could be a test, she muttered. We'll wait 10. Back inside, Diana refreshed the court docket on her laptop. A new minute order populated. She blinked, leaned forward, smiled with the kind of smile that only comes after weeks of not smiling. Judge ruled, she called. Anti-slap granted as to defamation counts. Vale's complaint is struck. Hearing on fees set for Friday. Applause broke, ragged and relieved. Someone whooped. Nia jumped at the sound, then giggled, the melody under her hands speeding, brightening. On the sidewalk, a silver SUV eased to a stop 2 doors down. The rear window lowered an inch. A pair of eyes met Adrian's and darted away. A paper bag slid out and dropped to the pavement. The SUV rolled forward, merged, disappeared. Park reached the bag first, gloved up, peered inside. Ceramic shards, white with a faint cobalt rim. A napkin, grease-stained, with a date and 3 initials in careful block letters. Underneath, a phone, cheap, prepaid, taped shut with a note, "Press play in private." They looked at each other, the street suddenly louder, the ocean suddenly closer. Park tucked the bag under her arm. "Chain of custody," she said, already in motion. Inside, Nia finished on a high, hopeful chord that hung in the air longer than seemed possible. Adrian stood in the doorway, bag in hand, gaze on Carmen. "Someone else is ready to talk," he said. Diana cleared the table, set the phone in the center like a fragile bird. "We watch together," she said, voice steady, fingers careful on the tape. The screen woke to a dark room, a familiar silhouette, a plate arcing, a voice saying a name none of them had heard before. And then the video revealed something none of them had planned for, something that connected Sloane's private cruelty to a public power bigger than any of them had imagined. The phone screen shook, as if whoever filmed it was breathing too hard to hold still. A dining room, different house, same marble shine. Sloane sat at the head of the table in workout leggings and a crisp white hoodie, hair in a high ponytail, face bare and cold. Across from her, a man in a city-issued blazer with a tiny lapel pin, City Ethics Commission. His name tag flashed when he leaned forward. R. Ellison. "Your concern is noted, Ms. Vale," he said, voice oiled. "But investigations are delicate. If you keep pushing, the council member will push back." Sloane laughed softly. "Council member Ortiz pushes nothing without my donors. I want those wage cases buried by next week. And tell your inspector to stop sniffing around my properties. If he wants to keep his pension, he'll forget what he saw in the basement." The camera panned, just a breath, to a door ajar behind them. A little girl's shadow crossed the threshold and froze. A plate shattered off screen. Sloane's head snapped up. "Out!" she hissed toward the shadow. "Now!" The footage cut. The timestamp in the corner matched the date on the napkin. Silence crowded the studio. The implication hit first, bribery, threats, then the second blow. If she could lean on a commission, what else had she bent? Diana's voice arrived measured, like stepping stones across a river. "We don't leak this raw. We authenticate the official's identity, confirm the location, and secure the witness who filmed it. If this is real, we're not just in a domestic abuse case anymore. We're in public corruption." Park was already moving. "Ellison, former DA investigator, lateraled to ethics last year. I'll pull FOIA logs, phone records, donor filings." Adrian looked at Carmen. "We'll keep Nia out of the blast radius. I'll move her lesson time, change routes, add security." Carmen nodded, hand on her daughter's back. "Whatever it takes." Within an hour, Park had a map on the whiteboard. Arrows between Sloane's Foundation, a Shell LLC, a luxury condo sponsor, and 3 campaign committees tied to the council member. "Same bookkeeper across all entities," she said, tapping a name. "Keeps 2 sets of ledgers if my hunch is right." Diana ghost wrote a preservation letter to the Ethics Commission, formal, polite, lethal. "You are on notice to preserve all communications between Ms. Vale, Council Member Ortiz's office, and Staffer R. Ellison. She CC'd the state AG's Public Integrity Unit. Adrian called Marcus at the paper. Off the record, we may have a graph tape. Sit tight till we verify. Marcus exhaled. You understand, if this is solid, the city will quake. I understand, Adrian said. So does a little girl who plays piano in my living room. Night dropped fast, the studio windows turning to mirrors. Park traced a route on the board to the likely filming spot. Sloane's Canyon House, lower dining room. Angle's low, she said. Nanny or housekeeper crouched by the service door. She looked at Carmen. Do you recognize the voice? Carmen listened again, eyes closed. Maria, she said, sure as a sunrise. She left last winter. Said Sloane made her sign papers that scared her. Diana's phone lit up with a blocked call. She put it on speaker. A woman whispered, the word thin with fear. I can't come back there. I mailed you a copy of the video because my cousin said you help people. She has the original. If Sloane finds out I talked. You're safe, Diana cut in, calm as a seatbelt click. We'll meet somewhere of your choosing. We'll bring a victim advocate. We'll help you file a U visa application if you qualify. No one will force you to testify before you're ready. The line went quiet. Then, tomorrow, 11 a.m., St. Bridget's parking lot, back corner. The call ended. Adrian rubbed his temples. The second this breaks, Sloane weaponizes everything. PR, lawyers, favors. We need allies before sunrise. He found them. The AG's office responded to Diana's email with a single line. Received. Please send chain of custody. The Ethics Commission's general counsel, someone with a spine, asked for an in-person briefing at 9 a.m. A council staffer Adrian once mentored texted, I've seen weird transfers. I'll help if I can. At dawn, Naya's scale practice threaded through clacking keyboards and the hiss of Diana's espresso machine. Carmen folded uniforms for the boutique hotel like muscle memory, eyes on her daughter, mouth set. Play it again, Adrian said. Not the video, the melody. Nia obliged, and the notes blew the dust off the morning. They split like a heist team. Park drove to verify the SUV plates from last night's drop. Diana and Adrian headed to the downtown glass box where the commission lived. Inside, walls hung with framed codes that suddenly meant something. General Counsel Nguyen met them in a conference room that smelled faintly of toner. She watched the video twice, then leaned back, fingers steepled. If this is authentic, Ellison's finished. Ortiz is in trouble. Ms. Vale will try to scorch earth. We'll secure warrants, but we need the original file for metadata. We meet the witness in 2 hours, Diana said. You'll get what you need. Nguyen nodded. You'll also get blowback. Be ready. Back at the studio, Carmen packed snacks and water in a paper bag like any school day, but slipped a rosary in her pocket. For courage, she said to no one in particular. She hugged Nia twice at the door. St. Bridget sat on a hill above a strip of taco stands and a tire shop. The lot cracked with weeds, the back corner shielded by an old oak. They arrived early. A silver Corolla pulled in late, parking nose out. A woman in a black hoodie stepped out, eyes scanning, hands trembling. Maria. Diana approached, palms open, advocate at her side. Gracias por venir. Maria nodded, swallowing hard. She said I was invisible, she whispered. Invisible people shouldn't make noise. You made exactly the right noise, Adrian said, and you're not invisible here. Maria handed over a micro SD in a Ziploc. There are other things, she added, glancing at the tire shop. A basement room with locks on the outside. A list of girls for events. If I talk, she'll find me. The air thinned. This wasn't just pay to play. It smelled like trafficking. Diana's voice stayed steady. We'll get you safe housing today. Right now, we go straight to the AG. No detours. She texted Nguyen. New evidence. Urgent. Then to Park. Call the task force. This just escalated. They pulled onto the boulevard as a black Escalade turned in hard toward the church. Windows dark, engine loud. Adrian checked the mirrors. It rolled past them, slow, predatory, then stopped at the curb they'd just left. Two men got out, scanning the lot. Seatbelts, Adrian said evenly, pressing the accelerator. Phones down, eyes forward. Maria gripped the door handle. Breath staccato. Carmen's rosary, tucked in her pocket miles away, somehow felt present in the car. Traffic open. They slid onto the freeway, the city blurring into gray and glass. Ahead, the AG's building rose like a promise. Behind them, the Escalade took the on-ramp. Sirens weren't wailing, but the freeway felt loud enough to be one. Adrian kept the sedan steady in the middle lane, eyes flicking to the rear view. The black Escalade merged two cars behind, then three, then ducked off at an exit. Nobody panics, Diana said, voice flat as a metronome. We're 5 minutes from the Attorney General's office. Maria, keep your hood up till we're inside. They swung into the garage beneath a slab of glass and steel. A state trooper waved them into a secured bay. Doors opened to a different climate. Air conditioning, fluorescent hum, the antiseptic smell of bureaucracy. A plainclothes agent met them with a badge flip and a soft, "This way." Conference room C looked like every government room in America. Beige walls, humming projector, a carafe of coffee that tasted like burnt toast. But when General Counsel Nguyen walked in with two investigators from the Public Integrity and Human Trafficking units, it felt like the cavalry. Maria slid the micro SD card across the table in a labeled bag. There are more videos, she said, voice barely audible. My cousin hid them when Sloan started making us sign new papers. An analyst popped the card into a right-blocked reader, fingers dancing. Metadata spilled onto the screen. Timestamps, GPS crumbs, device ID. Shot on a nanny cam app, he murmured. Location matches the Canyon house. No edits. Audio is clean. That's our Ellison. The room inhaled as one. Diana pushed a printed chain of custody log forward. Nguyen initialed it, then looked up. We'll move for emergency warrants now. Phone dumps, premises search, asset freeze on the Shell LLCs. We also request a protective order for Ms. Dos Santos and her daughter. Maria flinched at protective, then stared at her hands. If she finds me, she won't, Adrian said. We'll move you today. Safe address, new phone, a lawyer on call. You'll choose when and how to talk. A knock. A second analyst leaned in. We cross-reference donor filings with those consulting invoices Park flagged. Same routing numbers, same bookkeeper. And he hesitated. We found interior plans for a wine storage renovation in the Canyon house. The diagram shows a sub-level. Keyed locks on the exterior. The word everyone avoided sat in the middle of the table. Trafficking. Nguyen didn't blink. We execute today. By noon, a judge signed 5 warrants. The task force geared up. Unmarked SUVs, ballistic vests, a battering ram that looked heavier than sin. Adrian wanted to go. Diana blocked him with a palm. You're a witness and a potential target. You stay put. We can't just sit here. We can do something else, she said. Lock the narrative. 2 floors down, a state press officer set a podium against a seal. Adrian and Diana stepped up together. Him measured, her surgical. They didn't say Sloane's name. They didn't leak the video. They said the hard part out loud. An ongoing public corruption and human exploitation investigation. Credible evidence preserved. Victims protected. Retaliation a felony. The room buzzed without exploding. Back at the studio, Park had turned the whiteboard into a crime scene atlas. Ethics guy Ellison, she said on speaker. His personal Venmo shows piano lessons payments on days he visited Sloane. Cute code. Carmen, folding the last of Nia's t-shirts into a duffel, looked up. Do we tell Nia? We tell her we're taking a mini vacation, Adrian said. She gets to pick snacks. Nia trotted in, ponytail bobbing. Can I bring the keyboard? Absolutely, Carmen and Adrian said at once. By mid-afternoon, a safe house caseworker met them at a townhouse tucked behind a church in Koreatown. Pastel quilts, a fridge with magnet poetry, a handwritten note on the table. There's fruit and mac and cheese. Take a nap if you can. Rosa. Maria stood in the doorway, shaking. I haven't slept without a phone under my pillow in a year, she said, half to herself. Carmen took her hand. Tonight, you sleep. On the studio TV, a talking head tried to spin. A PR firm had clearly earned its retainer. Sloane, shot in perfect window light, declared in a statement she was devastated by false rumors and cooperating fully. The council member posted a photo from a school ribbon cutting with the caption, always focused on the kids. Comments bled red with anger. Diana's phone chimed. Nguyen. Entry commenced. The text swallowed the room. Adrian muted the TV. Time stretched like a rubber band. Then, sublevel door breached. Another beat. 2 locked rooms. Empty but recently occupied. Ledger found. Names. Cash amounts. Initials. Re. Freezer with DNA evidence. We need Maria to identify items. Maria sagged into a chair, breath hitching. The ledger. She made us sign initials when donors sponsored events. If my name is there? We scrub your name from any public filing, Diana said. We push Jane Doe designations. We will not let them turn you into a headline. The safe house doorbell chimed. Everyone froze. Rosa's voice floated down the hall, cheerful and ordinary. It's just me, dropping off dinner. They laughed too hard at the relief and then ate too fast because nerves burn calories. Nia pushed her plate back and set the keyboard on the coffee table, fingers finding the melody she always returned to when grown-ups whispered in other rooms. The notes threaded air with something like courage. At dusk, the caseworker sat with Nia on the floor, showing her how to make magnet words say, small hands make big music. Carmen rested her cheek on her daughter's hair. Park dozed with a laptop open like a shield. Adrian stood at the window and watched the sunset bleach the freeway to silver. Diana's phone buzzed again. Arrest Maid. R. Ellison in custody. Seized devices. Canyon House sealed. We'll want Maria in tomorrow for a soft ID. Adrian read it aloud. Maria exhaled like a tire finally finding a curb. If he talks, Diana said quietly. The dam breaks. The TV popped to a live chopper shot. Police tape curling around Sloane's Canyon House. A line of evidence boxes marching toward vans. Blue lights painting the hillside. The anchor's measured voice faltered when the camera caught a glimpse of the sub-level door. Scuffed, dented, lock plates warped from the ram. Nia's melody wobbled and then steadied. Is the bad lady going to jail? She asked without stopping her hands. We're working on it, Adrian said, because the only honest answer was the one that promised effort, not outcome. The front porch light flicked on with the timer. Someone's dog barked down the block. For a second, it was an ordinary Los Angeles evening. Park's phone lit the room blue. She frowned. Heads up. Anonymous drop. An internal memo from the Ethics Commission dated last month. It says Ellison was directed by a commissioner to close 2 complaints tied to Sloan's foundation. Which commissioner? Adrian asked. She zoomed in, eyes widening. Chair Ortega. Diana looked from the phone to the window to the little girl playing Chopin on a child's keyboard. Then this isn't just one bad actor, she said. It's a ring. The room went quiet again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was the sound of a line being drawn in permanent ink. Outside, a helicopter leaned south toward the canyon. Inside, Nia's final chord hung in the air, bright and certain, as if daring the night to argue. By dawn, Los Angeles woke up to chopper shots over the canyon house and push alerts that used the word sub-level. Every local morning show carried the same 2 phrases, sealed evidence and warrants executed, with the kind of restraint that meant the anchors were dying to say more. At 9 a.m., a state sedan ferried Maria and Diana to the Attorney General's building for a soft ID. No two-way mirror, no lineup, just a calm investigator laying items on velvet pads. A silver charm bracelet with a tiny piano, a guest badge with a clipped corner, a ledger page laminated by time and fear. Maria touched the bracelet without touching it, lip trembling. She made me wear it at donor nights, then took it back, she whispered. Her finger hovered over the ledger. Those initials are mine. She told me to use MD so it'd look like a doctor signed the receipts. The investigator nodded, noted, and sealed. Down the hall, Ellison sat under fluorescent lights with a public integrity prosecutor and a pitcher of water his hands wouldn't leave alone. He'd been arrested on the strength of the first device dump. Now he wanted a proffer. Cooperation in exchange for consideration, Diana said, when she slid into the observation room next to Nguyen. He's about to trade oxygen for a life raft. On the feed, Ellison confessed like a man digging out after a cave-in. How the foundation retreats were pay to play. How complaints died on the Ethics Commission depending on who called. How instructions landed by signal from S, short for Sloan, and O, which he never wrote out, but always obeyed. He named dates. He named bank accounts. He named a dinner at a museum where Chair Ortega slid a manila folder across a banquette and called it housekeeping. Nguyen's jaw flexed once. We'll impanel a grand jury by Friday. Back at the safe house, Park turned the living room into a newsroom. A bot farm tried to smear Maria within an hour of the soft ID. She countered with a forensic thread that read like a class on receipts. Carmen kept the TV low for Nia, who sat cross-legged on the rug and practiced scales on the small keyboard Rosa had found at a church rummage sale. Every time the news cut to the canyon house, Carmen muted. At noon, Sloan posted a close-up of clasped hands and a caption about forgiveness and faith. 20 minutes later, she filed an emergency injunction in federal court to halt unconstitutional fishing expeditions. A judge declined without a hearing. Park slid her phone across the coffee table. Denied with prejudice, she said, grinning like a bartender on payday. Adrian's own phone buzzed with an unknown number. Mr. Hale. Ortega's voice purred when he answered, familiar from 100 Deus speeches, colder by several degrees. You're invited to appear at a special Ethics Commission session tomorrow. We will not let zealots destroy good people. Happy to come, Adrian said, surprising himself. Bring a stenographer. There was a pause long enough to taste. Careful, Ortega said. You don't know how these rooms work. I do now. He hung up. Diana, listening on speaker, raised a brow. You just told the fox you're coming to the henhouse. Chickens are bringing a hawk, Adrian said. Nguyens moving faster than their publicists. By late afternoon, the AG's office scheduled a press conference for 6 p.m. Charges would be unsealed. Affidavits would be posted. Nguyen texted, "Be ready to go on record about the ledger's context." No specifics on victims. At 5:42 p.m., everything juddered. Fire. The alert hit phones before the live picture. Sloan's Canyon house belching smoke, black against a sherbet sky. Structure fire reported, the ticker said. Arson investigators en route. Maria went gray. She's burning us, she said, voice small. Diana grabbed her bag. Nguyen needs someone who knows the layout, she said. You don't go anywhere near it. Just talk me through the basement on FaceTime. On TV, firefighters swung axes. A camera caught a door in the back, half blown from its hinges. Park ghosted through old building permits and pulled up the original architect's sketches. There's a safe hidden behind a false rack on the left wall of the wine room, she said. If it got hot, the drive inside might still be recoverable. It's rated. Maria stared at the screen, fingers pressed to her mouth. The code, she said suddenly. She set the code to my birthday so she could make jokes about it. Month, day, year. Diana relayed it to Nguyen. Minutes stretched. Sirens wrapped the TV sound in blue and red. Nia stopped playing, hands hovering over the keys. Is your friend okay? She asked. She will be, Carmen said, though her eyes never left the smoke. Nguyen's text landed like a bell. Safe open. Devices intact. Handwritten notes. One, with Ortega initials. Park whooped. Carmen sagged with relief. Adrian put a fist to his mouth and bit it, just to feel something that wasn't adrenaline. At 6:00 p.m., Nguyen stood at a podium under the state seal and said the part the city needed said, "Today, we unsealed charges against Rebecca Sloan for conspiracy, money laundering, witness intimidation, and felony child endangerment. We also filed counts against Robert Ellison of the Ethics Commission. Further individuals are under active investigation." She didn't say Ortega's name. She didn't need to. Reporters shouted. Cameras panned. A chopper tracked a black SUV on Mulholland and then lost it in the dusk. Park's phone buzzed again. An encrypted message from a city staffer. Ortega calling an emergency closed session. Agenda says outside counsel and evidence retrieval. He's making a grab, Diana said. If they vote to demand the case file, they can leak or bury it. Adrian looked at Maria, at Carmen, at Nia's keyboard, at the soft, safe quilts Rosa had folded with care. Then we go, he said. We show up tomorrow and say the quiet part into the mic. Only with additional security, Diana replied. Nguyen can assign 2 state marshals. Park, draft me an emergency motion to block any commission subpoena for victim materials. They packed in 20 minutes the way people do when they've had practice. Chargers, folders, snacks. Rosa pressed granola bars into Carmen's palm like talismans. Nia zipped her keyboard into its case and hugged it to her chest. Headlights pooled under the townhouse window. The caseworker checked the peephole, exhaled. Marshals, she said, unlocking the deadbolt. A second set of lights swung in behind the first, cutting across the stoop with a whitewash glare. Tires hissed on wet asphalt that wasn't wet. Park peered through the side curtain and went very still. "Those aren't the marshals," she said. The second SUV idled with its high beams pinned on the stoop like a rifle scope. Two men stepped out in dark suits without badges, moving with the loose confidence of people who expected doors to open for them. Park didn't move her face from the curtain. "Private security," she murmured. "Not ours." The door shook under the first knock. 3 polite taps, then a heavier thud. Rosa set Nia behind her, one hand on the girl's shoulder. Carmen's fingers found Maria's, and both women squeezed until their knuckles blanched. "State marshals!" a voice called from the curb. This time, real credentials flashed in the washed-out glare. The first SUV's driver lifted his palm in a crisp signal. The 2 men in dark suits hesitated, recalculating. The taller one leaned toward the peephole and smiled without warmth, then stepped back and slid into his car. Both SUVs peeled away, opposite directions, taillights winking like lies. "Clock's ticking," Diana said, already strapping on her bag. "They'll try a softer play in a brighter room." By morning, City Hall hummed like a generator. The Ethics Commission chamber, mahogany dais, flags at symmetrical angles, filled with staffers, lobbyists, and a thicket of press that smelled of coffee and deadlines. Ortega entered first, silver hair neat, smile pre-installed. He spotted Adrian across the aisle and offered a small, pitying nod that said, "You poor, earnest thing." Nguyen's 2 marshals flanked the front row, where Maria sat between Carmen and Rosa, Nia's keyboard case across her knees like a shield. Park perched behind them with a laptop open, an HDMI cable already threaded to the chamber projector. Diana stood near the aisle, calm as a surgeon. Ortega struck the gavel. "This special session will address recent reckless allegations against public servants. Council has advised that the Commission seek immediate production of all materials." "Point of order," Adrian said, standing before his mic light even warmed. "The Commission cannot subpoena victim records under active state investigation without a court order." He turned to the audience. "And it won't get one." A ripple crossed the room. Part outrage, part relief. Ortega tilting his head. "Mr. Hale is not recognized." "He is now," said a new voice at the back. Nguyen stepped in, crisp suit, a folder under one arm and the unflinching patience of someone who had slept 2 hours and expected to win anyway. Deputy Attorney General Nguyen, with a motion and a warrant. She handed copies to the clerk. "This body is enjoined from destroying, retrieving, or demanding evidence tied to People v. Sloan et al. Violations will be treated as obstruction." Ortega's smile thinned. "Deputy Nguyen, with respect?" "With respect," Nguyen said. "We recovered a fireproof safe last night with devices, ledgers, and notes initialed R.O. If the chair would like to clarify whose initials those are, the podium is right there." The room inhaled. Cameras clicked. Ortega glanced at his counsel. Counsel looked at his shoes. He tried the dignity route. "This is a circus, and I will not—" Park's voice hopped the sound system. "Let's call it a documentary." She hit a key. The projector came alive. Date-stamped screenshots, ledger scans, a split screen of Ellison's sworn proffer, and the disguised text thread where O authorized board outreach to discourage state interference. No names, only the cold math of metadata, times, towers, routing IDs, then a still photo of the safe's notebook page. Retreat, pledge, 250K, deliverables, ethics stay put, RO. Diana rose. "For the record, we are not presenting victim identities. We are establishing a pattern of conduct. The pattern is extortion, posing as philanthropy. Ortega pounded his gavel hard enough to chip the wood. You will turn off that screen or be removed. Nguyen didn't blink. Marshal? The nearer marshal didn't touch a soul. He simply took one step forward and turned, facing the dais. The room rebalanced around the uniform. Adrian leaned into the mic. This sounds abstract until you realize what it buys. It buys silence while a kid gets called ugly and less than in her own home. It buys a city that shrugs and says, "Not our problem," while a girl hides her drawings so the lady of the house won't rip them up. He looked back to Maria. It buys fear. Maria stood before anyone could talk her out of it. Her voice was steady, not loud. I cleaned their floors. I learned their schedules so I could keep my kid away from her. I thought no one would believe me because people with invitations make the truth smaller. She lifted her chin. The truth is not small. Silence, then a single clap. Someone hissed, "Not appropriate." Another voice, "Let her speak." The dam cracked. The room shifted from spectator to witness. Nguyen closed her folder. Chair Ortega, the state has filed motions this morning seeking your recusal pending investigation. You may step down with dignity or explain your initials under oath. For a heartbeat, he looked like any other cornered man. Age visible, hands uncertain. He began to speak, stopped, and chose a final performance. For the record, he said, voice carefully even, I have always served this city. He took off the mic and set it down like a sacrament. And I will answer these lies. Elsewhere. He left to a chorus of shudders, half the dais scrambling in his wake. The gavel passed to the vice chair, who had the good sense to call a recess. The room exhaled in overlapping waves. Reporters surged. The marshals made a clean lane to the side door, and the small group slipped into a cool hallway that smelled of floor wax and old votes. In the quiet, Nia tugged the zipper on her keyboard case. Can I play something? She asked Nguyen, shy but brave. Nguyen's hard edges softened. You can play anything you want. They ended up in an empty committee room with bad acoustics and good light. Nia set the little keyboard on a folding table and played a simple melody that grew braver with each pass. Carmen leaned against the wall and cried in the way that repairs a person. Rosa filmed with trembling hands. Park sat on the carpet, back against a chair, eyes closed. Diana watched Adrian watch them all, the math of a different kind settling in his face. Nguyen's phone buzzed. She glanced, then grinned in a way no camera had yet captured. Arson unit just booked Sloan's fixer, she said, and the federal partners are opening a public corruption case on Ellison and Associates. We're moving. Carmen wiped her cheeks. Does that mean we're safe? It means you were brave, Nguyen said, and the law is catching up. Outside, a rally formed on the steps, placards for workers' rights, kids on shoulders, a hand-painted sign that read, See us. Someone started a chant that wasn't angry so much as insistent. The sound found its way through the open window, a low, human drum. Park nudged Nia. Play the big ending. Nia obliged, fingers landing on a bright cadence that hung in the cheap ceiling tiles and then rolled down the hallway like good news. Weeks later, the city felt different in small, measurable ways. 2 commissioners resigned. The AG indicted Sloan and Ellison. Ortega took a leave and then a plea. An emergency ordinance extended whistleblower protections to domestic workers placed in private residences. The foundation For fair wages, ask Maria to train new staff on how to document safely. She said yes and meant it. Carmen started a paid apprenticeship in arts outreach. Rosa, at last, slept past 4:30 a.m. On a Saturday evening, in a neighborhood park, the caseworker set folding chairs in rows for a community concert. No marble, no donor's wall, just grass, fairy lights, and a keyboard on a plywood stage. When the MC called Nia's name, the crowd clapped like they already knew the song. Adrian stood at the back with Diana and Park, paper plates of potluck food balanced on their palms. "We didn't fix the city," he said. Diana smiled. "We made it answer a better question." Park elbowed him. "Also, you learned how to breathe before speaking to cameras, which is personal growth." On stage, Nia glanced to the side where Maria and Carmen stood holding hands. She nodded to them, then to the little cluster of marshals who'd come off shift to sit on the grass. Her first notes were tiny, then steadier, then clear as glass. The melody lifted and carried across the field, and people who had never met her fell quiet in the same shared second. When she finished, the applause didn't explode so much as swell, warmed by recognition, held long enough to feel like a promise. Maria looked up through the lights and found Adrian and Diana and Park in the back. She mouthed, "Thank you." Adrian shook his head and mouthed back, "You did this." Night slid, in soft and ordinary. Kids chased each other between chair legs. The caseworker packed extra granola bars into a tote. Nguyen texted a photo of a signed plea agreement and a single word: done. Carmen wrapped an arm around her daughter's shoulders as they walked toward the sidewalk, keyboard case bumping Nia's knee. "You're going to need a bigger piano," she said. Nia grinned. "We'll make room." They stepped into the streetlight glow. Not rich and not famous, but seen. Exactly enough to change the rooms they entered next. In a city that loved a mask, they had chosen faces, and for once, the city had to look back.